What the Jim? What's up, buddy? It's What Jim, and it's finally time to rank the Paul McCartney studio albums on Tier Maker. These won't be all the studio albums ranked to be all but one of them, as I've not heard that album, and that is Give My Regards to Broad Street, which is the soundtrack album, and that came out in 1984. This will also be including the albums he did with Wings, and let's get to it, shall we? Ranking these albums. So here we are over on Tier Maker, and I'll link this exact tier list in the description below. This isn't one I've made, this is one that somebody else has made, and I'd really appreciate it if you would go ahead and give this ranking a go. So we'll do these albums in chronological order. So the first one is McCartney one, which came out in 1970. I think this is a really great start to Paul McCartney's discography. However, there's some tracks I'm not the biggest fan of. I'm going to put it in B tier. So S tier will be all the perfect albums, A will be amazing ones, B will be great, C will be good, and D will be terrible. And of course you've got Never Listened To underneath the D tier. Next up is my favourite Paul McCartney album, which is Ram. It's an absolute masterpiece in my opinion. It's currently in my top 25 albums of all time. So for me, obviously, it's going to go into S tier. It's got so many incredible songs on that album. It's also from my favourite year of music, being 1971. Then we got the album that came out in 1971 as well, which is the album titled Wildlife. And I do actually prefer this slightly more to the first McCartney album, but I'm still going to put it in B tier. Then we've got Red Rose Speedway from 1973, and I think this is a pretty amazing album. I think it's a very underrated one in his discography. So for me, it's going to go in A tier. There we go. Next album will be going S tier, and that is Band on the Run. It's my favourite Paul McCartney and Wings album, and that's definitely going to go in S tier for me. Again, just like Ram, it's got so many incredible songs on it. Then we'll jump to 1975 with Venus and Mars. This is another perfect album in my opinion. It's my second favourite Wings album. Then we've got Wings Speed of Sound, which came out in 1976. I'm going to put this album ahead of the first McCartney album, but I prefer it to Wildlife. Actually, yeah, I'm going to say I prefer it to Wildlife, only ever so slightly. Then we've got London Town, which came out in 1978. I don't think this is the perfect album, but I think it's very, very close to being, so it's going to go in A tier, and it's going to go ahead of Red Rose Speedway. And then we've got the final Paul McCartney and Wings album, which came out in 1979, and that is Back to the Egg. In my opinion, it's my least favourite Paul McCartney and Wings album, but I still think it's a really great album though. So we're going to put it in B tier, but I prefer it to the first McCartney album. I think the filler tracks are better in Back to the Egg, but the first McCartney album has some of my favourite Paul McCartney songs being Every Night and Maybe I'm Amazed, as well as Junk. So because of that, I do prefer the first McCartney album to Back to the Egg, but only ever so slightly. Then we go on to 1980 with McCartney 2, and this to me is another underrated Paul McCartney album. I'd say all the ones in A tier I think are very underrated. So yeah, it's going to go in A tier, and I actually do prefer it slightly more to Red Rose Speedway, but I do prefer London Town. Then we got the album from 1982, Tug of War, and that's for me is going to go in A tier. I'm going to put it ahead of not only Red Rose Speedway, but also McCartney 2. Then we've got Pipes of Peace. Play the Pipes of Peace. I'm going to put this one ahead of Red Rose Speedway and ahead of McCartney 2, but I do prefer Tug of War and London Town for the A tier ones. Pipes of Peace came out in 1983, and the next one came out in 1986, being Press to Play. I think this is a great Paul McCartney album, but out of all the ones I've mentioned so far, this would be the one I'd want to listen to the least. So it's probably my least favourite out of the ones we've mentioned so far. Then we've got Flowers in the Dirt, which came out in 1989. This one, definitely A tier for me, but where in A tier? I'm going to say I prefer it slightly more than Pipes of Peace. Then we've got Off the Ground, which came out in 1993. I think this is the perfect album, and this, in my opinion, is the most underrated Paul McCartney album. I'm going to put it right there in S tier. Then we go on to Flaming Pie, which came out in 1997. This is my second favourite Paul McCartney album, and then we go on to the year 2001 with Driving Rain, which I think this is quite an underrated album. It's not a really underrated one because I do think it's a very long album. I still think it's great though, but I put it in B tier, and it might actually be my least favourite Paul McCartney album out of these ones we've gone through so far. Then in 2005 we got one of Paul McCartney's best, being Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. And soon I'm going to do a comparison video to Chaos and Creation with Flaming Pie. I do love this album nearly as much as Flaming Pie, but Flaming Pie does hold a special place in my heart because I did a live stream reacting to that album. But I do think Chaos and Creation is a bit more of a consistent album. Then we got Memory Almost Full from 2007, another 10 out of 10 album to me. I do prefer it to Off the Ground, but I do prefer Venus and Mars. Then in 2013, we've got the album simply titled New. Guess what? It's another 10 out of 10 album. I actually do prefer it to Memory Almost Full. Jump 5 years into 2018, we have the album Egypt Station. This is a close to perfect album, but I'm going to put it in A tier because it isn't a perfect album to me. It's just a little bit too long. And then of course, 2020, we have McCartney 3. This one, just like London Town, is very close to being perfect, but not quite perfect. Right, that's what it's all looking like currently. And we've gone through all the albums chronologically, but we still have a few left because we have the Paul McCartney cover albums. Not every single song is a cover on these 3 albums. There are some songs that Paul McCartney did write himself. First up is an album that came out in 1988, and that is Choba B CCP, something like that. It's spelled CHOBA, then a space, then B, then a space, and CCCP. This is my least favourite Paul McCartney cover album. I still think it's a great album though, and I'm going to put it into B tier, right, just below Driving Rain. Then we've got the album Run Devil Run, which came out in 1999. We're gonna party like it's 1999. I don't know why I'm singing that song because that song's not on the album. I'm gonna put it right here on B tier. Then of course we've got the album Kisses on the bottom. And it's my favourite cover album that Paul McCartney did. It came out in 2012 if I've not said so already. And I'm going to put it right here. Okay, that's it, because all we've got left is Give My Regards to Broad Street, which, like I said at the beginning of this video, I've not heard. And we've got Wings' Greatest Hits, which we're not counting compilations, plus I've not heard that one. Before we conclude this video, let's do a quick recap. So out of these 25 albums, there are 8 in S tier, 8 in A tier, and 9 in B tier. So that means most of the Paul McCartney albums I think are great. Hopefully you enjoyed watching that. Now let's conclude the video. So that's it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and comment if you've not done so already. I really enjoyed delving into Paul McCartney's discography, and I really enjoyed ranking all those albums on Tier Maker. And again, that tier list is in the description below. I appreciate you watching. Until next time everyone, peace and love, and ciao.